Welcome to Mining Now. I'm your host, Jared Downey. We have two guests on the show today representing, well, two companies, but one's a parent company, I think. They'll set it up properly how it works out. But it's Marc Psaltis. He is the Business Development West Team Manager at Dodge Industrial. And we have Bradley Smith. He is the Product Manager at RBC Bearings. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. First time on. Good to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
Where's everybody? This is a remote interview. Where's everybody located?
I'm actually at the Denver, Colorado area.
Nice.
And I'm out of Connecticut area, Hartford, Connecticut area.
Oh, okay. I've driven through sort of the rural areas of Denver or of Colorado. It is just, man, it's unbelievable country out there. It is unbelievable.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I actually live in the rural parts.
Oh, do you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. It's one of those places like, I could live here. And you think, no. I'm not uprooting everything. Okay. Let's start off with, so Brad, you're with RBC. Marc, you're with Dodge. What is the setup? Who's the parent company? What's the whole setup of the companies here? I don't know who wants to sort of do that initial outline.
Sure, I'll go ahead. I'll jump in. So RBC's technically the parent company, although Dodge is pretty much the same size as RBC, kind of a unique acquisition. RBC's been around over 100 years. A general bearing supplier, a lot of precision, a lot of specialty bearing products. Over the years, there's been a lot of different acquisitions. The most recent being the Dodge acquisition, probably about 3 years ago at this point.
Oh, so still fairly recent then.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
And as I said, right, both companies at that point were about the same size. So really going to market a little differently, but both servicing the mining industry. And so we're really trying to, get the two companies out there together. Although we go at it a little different, we're on different machines, different ends of a mine, but want to present ourselves as one company because we're one company these days.
So where could we maybe outline the different special? Maybe Marc, I'll jump in. You can jump in on this one. So where does Dodge specialize then? Just for people that don't know the company at all.
We are a manufacturer of gearing, mounted bearings, and power transmission equipment. So we've been very in touch with mining for decades, and the combination of RBC and Dodge is frankly a very powerful combination when it comes to mining. Because RBC is known for supplying components to I call it yellow iron. Their customers that many times their equipment's yellow, but they transport a lot of material through a mine site, right?
Right.
On the Dodge side of things, we also transport material through that mine site. We just do it the other method. So one way is maybe haul trucks and other means like that. The way we do it is through conveyance, and that's where we specialize.
I see.
Mining.
What sort of separates? Because there's other players in the space. We don't need to pretend there's not. But what sort of does? And Brad, I'll go back to you on this, then over to you, Marc. What sort of separates out the brand and the line of products from the competition in the sector?
Yeah, so on the, I guess, traditional RBC bearing side, we make a lot of, a lot of products that a lot of other bearing companies manufacture. We do a lot of spherical plane bearings and rod ends and cam followers, large tapered roller bearings. What I'd say really separates us from a lot of the other manufacturers out there is we really are much more of a solutions provider. We're not hey, look in our catalog and find the bearing you need. We're a lot more of what's the problem, what's going on, how do we get in and solve that?
Let's talk about our Heavy Industry World Tour, brought to you by Savannah Equipment, supplying mining equipment worldwide. We are heading to events across North America and Australia and filming episodes on location. Email us at info@crownsman.com to be part of Crownsman's Heavy Industry World Tour. Did you know cementitious binders can be responsible for up to 70% of the total GHG footprint of mine backfilling processes? Now you can replace up to 50% of the binder in your mine backfill operations with Graybond, Graymont's new low-carbon cementitious binder. This lime-based alternative binder maintains a 40 to 70% lower GHG footprint compared to typical cement and can adapt to varying mine conditions without compromising performance. Learn more about Greybond at greybond.com. Falkirk Environmental Consultants transform ideas into sustainable realities. Founded in 2019 by a visionary team including Jen Turner, Max Brownhill, Mike McPhee, and Indigenous engagement specialist Christy Smith. The team champions projects that thrive and respect communities and ecosystems. Falkirk specializes in project planning, Indigenous rights, community well-being, and water stewardship. The team at Falkirk are more than consultants. They are natural resource stewards that support a sustainable future. Falkirk, getting it right the first time. You can contact them info@falkirk.ca to learn more.
Who's the actual client for you, though, at our RBC? Is it the operator? Is it the manufacturer? All the above? Who all are you talking to?
So we have been servicing the OEMs in this space for a very long time. Overall, I mean, our objective is to solve problems in the mining industry. So we hear a lot of the problems, at the end user, at the mining level, and how those get fixed. We don't really care so much. It's all about solving problems and bubbling that up to getting the right solution in that piece of equipment.
So you're dealing directly with the mine itself, like the mine operators themselves and the contractors at the mine and that sort of thing?
We don't sell directly to mines, no.
No, okay. So just again, just for the clarity then, who's getting actually buying the product then for the mine?
So, I mean, we sell all throughout the chain, I suppose, but
right.
But we really sell mainly our on the RBC side. Our biggest customers are the OEMs themselves.
Okay, when you say solving problems, and we're going to jump in to the Dodge side as well. But what are some of the common problems that people are coming to you with? Because one of those things is like everybody knows what a bearing is, everybody sees one. But what do you run into, especially in the mining sector, which is, of course, as everybody knows, so rugged, so hard on everything? What is sort of some common ones you hear?
It's kind of evolving, I'd say, or at least the technology is evolving. So, of course, the most obvious is contamination, right? How do you keep the bearings clean? How do you keep the grease in the bearings, the contaminants out of the bearings? To that end, we do a lot of different sealing technology, a lot of enhanced lubrication features, that kind of stuff. That's evolved over the years too, that today we're doing a lot more of maintenance-free bearings, stealing really some technology from our aerospace side and doing maintenance-free. So picture a haul truck running around, and rather than 30 or 40 different grease points or an auto lube system with all the injectors on it, we can outfit a truck with bearings that don't require any grease anymore.
So it's not an automatic lubrication system. It's just not. Is it a greasing system, or is it they don't require the grease at all? I all of a sudden feel way behind on the technology. Yep.
Well, that's where we feel that's probably the future. It is bearings that don't require any grease. So we use a liner system, as we call it. We basically it's a composite system with the lubrication built right into it that we bond into the bearings in the raceway. And they're good for the life of the bearing, good for the service intervals of the vehicle. What is the
lifespan of those compared to your standard, I guess, greasable bearing? What would be? I don't know what the terminology is.
So I mean, it's hard to say in the sense that different positions have different life cycles. Our bogey is always trying to make it to that maintenance interval, whether that's 10,000 hours, 15,000, whatever, on that truck, but generally speaking, I guess the way I always explain it, right? If you've got a steel on steel bearing, if you can keep it properly greased, it's a good wear couple. The problem is in a mine site, right, it's often not the case, right? It's getting contamination, it's getting overloaded, and the grease is getting squirted out. Or even in some of the cases, it's just the position. Picture a steering bearing on a haul truck, right? As you're driving down through that mine site, that whole truck is just kind of bouncing and gyrating around, and all the grease moves out of the load zones in that bearing.
Right.
And so when you get to the end and you got to make that turn, there's no grease in that load zone anymore. So that's where those bearings suffer from, a shortened life from what they theoretically should have. Whereas some of these different technologies allow that grease to stay there, or the maintenance-free ones, you don't need that grease. That lubricant's bonded in the raceway, so we get a lot more life out of it.
CIM is Canada's leading technical institute dedicated to the sustainability of our industry. Members enjoy professional growth opportunities through CIM libraries, publications, webinars, societies, and the job board. Experience the CIM community firsthand at the Conference of Metallurgists, August 19th to 22nd, ICARD, September 16th to 20th, and the CIM Health and Safety Conference, October 6th to 8th. Visit CIM.org for more information and join CIM today. In the demanding world of mining, safety and performance are paramount. Sophie is a comprehensive solution built for the unique needs of the mining industry. From the ground up, their technology helps everyone who works in, manages, and leads mining operations to create high-performance work environments and ensure they come home safely every day. Create the workplace everyone wants to be a part of. Choose Sophie. Visit sophie.com to learn more. Attention builders, we've got everything you need to know about the grit and grind of the construction world in one show. The Construction Show is where you can share your expert techniques and strategies to help keep the crew strong and construction sites secure. From foundational tips, industry trends, safety strategies to advanced equipment and machinery. Be part of the voice of construction. Book your episode and showcase your company to millions worldwide. Visit crownsman.com.
Are they interchangeable, or there's some areas still where you need the ones with grease and then there's the ones that can't? Sorry, what's the terminology for the ones that without the grease? So I don't keep...
I mean, we really just call them maintenance free because we use a lot of different technology to get there.
So for the maintenance free ones, then what is it? Is it an interchangeable product, or is it dependent on the application?
It is. So we generally make bearings to be a direct drop in. So it does interchange or drop into that position at least as best we can. Sometimes we need a little more real estate to really seal it up, depending on the position, get a boot seal around it or something. But generally it's made to be a drop in. It's made to really be able to fit in that same envelope and solve those problems.
Wow. This is, I truly did not come into this conversation understanding what we were going to be covering. That's quite interesting. I'm probably going to circle back to it because I have a couple more questions, but let's bring Dodge in. So, Marc, same question to you. In the market, where does Dodge sort of find that sweet spot for clients?
You know, we've excelled in sealing as well on the Dodge side of the company. What's interesting is kind of goes back to my original statement. On the RBC side, they are experts on the mobile equipment side of the equation, and we are experts on the conveyance side, or the stationary equipment primarily side of the equation. So they both use bearings and they both use similar products, but like Brad was saying, the bearings on the static equipment, they do need to be lubricated. There is not yet a product out there that is not lubricated. Even if it's a no lube bearing, it starts out with lube, right? So we have perfected and enhanced and made better our sealing systems, whether it's in our mounted bearings, whether it's in our gearing products, and that, of course, in the mining atmosphere is paramount. That's what you've got to do to make that last. So Dodge has built its name on creating and building and upgrading their products for decades. We still build all our gearing product to what's called an AGMA rating, American Gear Manufacturers Association of America. That's a very, very stringent, very tough rating to meet. But we're proud to do it. And we've been doing it for a long time. We'll continue to do it. That's kind of what you need in these environments.
Could I just ask what makes it so stringent? What are the standards?
The bearings, compared to other standards that are around the world, say, different countries and different regions around the globe have different standards. The AGMA standard is probably one of the toughest because the bearings typically are bigger, size for size. The gear faces are wider. The gear teeth are deeper. Everything about it is a little more rugged. It's a little more heavy duty,
right?
And that's just the mentality of AGMA, is to make it more heavy duty and less, this is exactly what I need to do the job.
I wanted to go just through a couple of your product lines because I was looking yesterday. I was going through your website and like pulling stuff. There was the motorized torque arm I found interesting, and then the safety mount bearing, which I think you kind of already touched on. But can we go with the motorized torque arm? I've got some graphics up. I don't know if you have those in front of them, but I wanted to sort of walk the audience through what I'm looking at and what they're looking at now.
Sure. So motorized torque arm really is the next generation in shaft mount reducer from Dodge. Well-known fact within Dodge, maybe not so well-known outside of Dodge, but Dodge invented the shaft mount reducer.
I did not know that.
Long time ago.
There you go.
So every time you see a gearbox that's mounted on a shaft, really that original concept came from Dodge, and that was in 1949.
Wow.
So we've been doing this for a while, right? We've originated a few products like that, and say Type E, that's another Dodge original. But the original torque arm was a belted product and is still alive and well today. It's still a huge product for Dodge. A lot of customers love it and continue to use it. But as time has progressed, especially in large mining, other types of mining, a beltless solution was asked for and required. So we've designed what we call MTA, right? Motorized torque arm. Today, as we sit here, motorized torque arm is used on conveyors from, say, 10 horsepower, sometimes 5, all the way up to 200 horsepower, which really spans the whole gap of the conveyance world. Sometimes we'll do a dual drive if we need to do a 400 horsepower system, right? We just double up.
So this is eliminating that belting system that you'd see on the side of conveyors? Is that like the...
This eliminates, so what it does is it provides a direct drive method from the motor to the gearbox.
Right, yeah.
So the original drive method is a gearbox with a motor and a V-belt drive on the input side.
Right, yeah.
So that was the original method. And again, it's still out there. We're still selling a lot. I equate it to McDonald's and Big Macs, right? Over however many served, we've done a lot of those. Frankly, those are all over North America.
Right. Is this a direct kind of same question I was asking to Brad. Is this a direct replacement? Is it interchangeable? If someone says we want to upgrade ours?
Interchangeable as far as, because it's shaft mounted, right? If it fits on the shaft it needs to fit on, yes, it's interchangeable.
Right. Are you seeing people doing that, or?
Absolutely. There's a trend right now, especially in mining, for that beltless solution. We're seeing that.
Up to 200 horsepower. It's been a while since I've worked with conveyors. And when I say a while, I mean like 15, 20 years. I was like a kid, basically. So the 200 horsepower, how large is that? How big of a conveyor are we talking that can run? 200
horsepower, it's not necessarily how big the conveyor is. It gets into how wide the belt is and how many tons that conveyor can move.
Right.
So like, I know of a rail loader system actually not too far from here that uses 200 horsepower, right? And from top to bottom, it's only like maybe 300, 400 feet.
Right.
So it requires that 200 horsepower to move that rock.
Right. And that'd be like a 30, 36 inch sort of belt?
It's probably 36 or 42, something.
Oh, okay.
Like that.
So wide. Yeah. And it's doing like aggregate, like heavy rock material.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. So this is large. Yeah. It can move a large.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But really that's on the medium to small side when it comes to mining. I mean, we've got other products that go up to 2,000 horsepower in the Dodge gearing product line too. But MTA is sort of our shining star right now because it's some of the newest product we have. That's been an addition to that existing product line.
Right. So sort of when you're need under that 200 horsepower, it just kind of plugs in beautifully into those systems.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then the safety one, the
safety mount,
the safety mount, that was quite interesting again, because obviously the safety is such a big issue. And then seeing a product, you go, oh, doesn't need to get done like that anymore.
Yes. So for the miners out there that watch this, you've all probably, hopefully, installed a typical SAF style bearing in the past, right? There's a lot of parts and pieces. You've got a housing, you've got a rolling bearing, you've got SNW adapters. You have to hand pack the grease in there. You've got to do a lot of things just to put this bearing on the shaft. And then you've got to use feeler gauges to obtain tolerances that are typically smaller than the size of a human hair to get it right. It's not easy. Never has been easy. There are a few people out there that can still do it and do it well.
Yeah.
It's not impossible, but we've got newer technology like this Dodge safety mount, which really takes the place of doing all that. It's shaft ready out of the box, already packed with grease to get you started. It sets the clearances for you in the design method in which it attaches to the shaft. And on top of that, it's got what we call internally a built-in bearing puller. So someday when this needs to come off the shaft, when the process is reversed, it actually will help you pull it off the shaft, unlike any other product you've probably dealt with.
And yeah, because I saw something like it's it's really taking away the exposure to the accidents that can be involved with that.
As you know, in mining, exposure is a word that the safety manager is always looking out for, right? Exposure to danger, right? And really, when this product was designed, mining was in mind. I've sold a lot of these in the coal mining world over the years, and initially they had me help install a few of those.
Oh, really?
You're out. I was out there working on a 7-inch bearing, and you've got sledgehammers, and guys are holding spanner wrenches, and guys are hitting with sledgehammers, and that's what's done today. A lot of it, right? So there's a lot of danger involved.
It's crazy how many guys. I always notice when some people are missing like a part of the finger. It's actually amazing that more of us who have not been on these sites. Actually, like having 10 fingers when you get, let's say, over 40, that's an accomplishment. I think it's crazy.
So the safety amount brings to the table is in those scenarios, whether it's 7-inch bearing, which we have available today, or the future is going to be 10.5-inch for this product.
Wow.
You can mount this bearing with a simple socket and ratchet set.
Crazy.
That's all you need. You don't need the sledgehammer. You don't need the feeler gauges. You don't need all that. And really, it comes back to the Dodge philosophy, which I didn't mention up front, but I should have. We try to design and build our products to be safer, faster, and easier. That's become sort of a term we've used for a lot of our from the initial concept in engineering and marketing as how do we make this mousetrap better at Dodge than the other people or even our own. Is it safer? Is it faster? And is it easier for the customers?
This kind of hits all three, really?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
It takes a big, and I actually wanted to ask both of you about R&D, and we'll also, I'm going to circle back to that.
Yeah.
Brad, bringing back you, both of you can answer this one, is the monitoring platforms. Are both organizations involved in that? Like, where notifications, all this sort of, maintenance updates, are both companies offering something in that space? I know I saw something on the Dodge side. Is the RBC, are you offering stuff like that?
The nature of our products, no, it hasn't been really strong on our side or really much of a product where our stuff's mounted, mobile equipment buried inside a linkage or a strut or anything like that. But really excited with the Dodge side of that and kind of, what possibilities could come out of that. Can we build something like that inside of, some of our products? Because it's a huge strength.
With all of the maintenance and care that now, like just the technology to monitor all this stuff on different elements of these machines, are you noticing things are lasting longer, or do people just then work them harder because they have more capability to know what's going on? Or do you actually see a difference in, like, same quality bearing, it's in there, but now that machine has better care, maintenance, because the driver is getting notified if they're overburdening it and things like that?
From my perspective, I don't know that I've seen it going longer. I find probably, if anything, they actually know how long it went for a change. I feel like oftentimes, something failed and you say, well, how long was it running? I don't know. Now at least with all that data monitoring, they say, well, we last time the service logs are, we can see we put it into service on this date and for this long, there's a lot more, I guess, usable data that is very helpful in addressing problems and tracking things and everything like that.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. It's really not necessarily about, it's just knowing to say, okay, at another 10,000 hours, we're going to let's get out ahead of this and not wait for the problem to happen, because it always happens with this machine at this point, right? Yep. We've done some episodes about that sort of maintenance monitoring stuff, just absolutely incredible stuff. Marc, I do want to talk about this. The Dodge, I think it's called is it called Optify?
Optify is our system and our platform, yes. So, and within that system and platform, we've got sensors and we've got what we call an IntelliLoop product. So really, we only have the two, but the two cover a lot of bases for us. The sensor itself has algorithms built into it, which can connect and recognize any Dodge product that is, quote, sensor ready. So many of our Dodge products are now sensor ready. So I can plug that sensor into it, tell it what product it's sitting on, and it already knows what its baseline should be, what other pertinent data are involved in that bearing, what it should be. Same with our gear solutions. So any of our gearboxes that are sensor ready, which is just about all of them now, I can plug that sensor in and it knows what it's sitting on and how it's supposed to perform.
So is it plugged in? Is it a continuous sensor that is feeding a system, or is it like a manual, like you go around and do a check?
You can go around and do a check, or in lieu of that, we have a gateway system that we offer. And that system can be programmed to go pull data at any cycle that you want to, once a day, once every other day, every hour, or whatever the case may be. It will pull the data. You can look at that data on a laptop on the other side of the world if you wanted to.
Something I ask on the show, I don't know if it's a great question, but I always find it curious because I kind of grew up in the smaller business world. And I'm always curious, this type of technology, is it applicable to the person running just a little plant, little gravel pit, as opposed to, I mean, obviously the big mines, they need it. They're plugging it all in. Is it applicable to both?
The great thing about this is it is. One, it is not a terribly spendy system.
Right. Okay.
And we've had a lot of customers put in multiple sensors. I'm talking hundreds of sensors in a site. To cover the two bearings on the head shaft, to put two bearings on the gearbox if it's a large two sensors on a gearbox if it's a large gearbox. So cost really isn't much of an issue for this, which leads to your question. And really, we've seen this going at small sites as well.
Yeah.
One, for that reason, but two, at small sites, they don't have the manpower.
Right.
That the big guys have, right? So this does really help monitor things that in the past, you'd have to have a person running around and I'm going to date myself here, but I grew up in this business and guys were running around with screwdrivers, sticking them on a bearing housing and listening for a tick.
Oh, I'm sure they still are somewhere.
And I'm sure they still are, but they don't have to do that anymore.
They don't have to, yeah.
And there's an economical way really to get away from doing that. And what does that do? It makes it safer.
Yeah.
It makes checking them faster. And that whole process is easier. So again, I'm back to that.
Yeah, I got asked this question too, and both of you, I'd like your thoughts on this. In the safety thing, when I was, and I'm, again, I was on sites. This is, 15 years ago. It's not even that long ago. But safety was, it was talked about, but it was kind of, there was still an attitude towards it. I don't know if it's maybe the circle I'm in that it's changed now. But I do feel there is a difference. Like, people now go on site, they are not going to, I would not go on site now and put a screwdriver up to him. I'd be like, I'm not putting my head anywhere close to that thing.
Yeah.
Do you find that? And I'm curious on both your opinions, because I feel like it's changed. Or is that just my perception sitting in a little studio?
It absolutely has changed. Brad, what do you think?
Yeah. No, I think, you hear, on every company, these ESG terms, environmental and safety and everything like that. Every company's worried about safety, worried about keeping their employees safe, and everything, and everywhere in there, right? From better guarding, better monitoring, better all that. But the best way to be safe is to not have to do it.
Not have to do it. Yeah, exactly.
Tell you, and you don't have to send a guy under a truck or under a conveyor belt or whatever. It's the best way to avoid it.
Yeah, that's what we say too with these sensors now. The best way to stay safe is to not have to touch the product.
Yeah.
The system.
Well, this is Brad. I'm going to bring you out on this one, and then again, same over to Mark. Is the R&D side of it? On the bearing side, in your case, Brad, you're dealing with very established OEMs. I'm sure they're coming to you. They've got all sorts of data on where their pain points are. If you're talking to the big boys, they know what they need, I would think.
Yeah.
what does R&D look like? And because I have a feeling it's going to be different on the Dodge side. What does it look like from the RBC side?
As I had kind of mentioned or hinted at, right? That's where that's what separates us is solving problems. So a perfect example, right? RBC is strong on spherical plane bearings. So spherical plane bearings, think of, the end of a hydraulic cylinder, suspension, whatever, lift cylinders on a truck. The fractured race spherical plane bearing that's all over this equipment was really invented by RBC in the 50s. The manner of manufacturing that, we call it fractured race. We actually fracture that outer ring in order to assemble the bearing that was invented by RBC. Since that time, everybody, makes that product. Everyone has it in their catalog, all the major bearing manufacturers. We still focus in on it from a technology standpoint, right? So when you talk about R&D, yes, we've got test labs, we've got, stuff we're constantly working on. And everything to improve that. We get feedback from the OEMs, right? We've got this bearing, it keeps cracking, and we keep having fractures of it. What do you got? And we've got our Impact Tough is a great example of right? Again, I said these are fractured bearings for us to assemble them. Well, we make a fracture-proof fractured bearing. As weird as that sounds, think of, dozers or something like that, where you get a lot of impacts. Of course, you're going to be fracturing and breaking bearings, right? So it's that whole feedback loop.
So, sorry, can you explain the fractured bearing again to me?
Yep. So think of these, whether it's a spherical plane bearing, if you're familiar with it, it's a ball basically inside the outer ring, right? Well, in order to get that ball inside the outer ring, you've got a couple different methods. You can put a slot in it, and it's a loader slot or a Messerschmitt bearing where you install that in. You've got stress risers. You've got a lack of material there. So there's some drawbacks to that. You can swage it, where you put that inner ring and you have a soft outer ring and you form the outer ring around the inner ring, right? And we've got divisions within RBC. Heim, for example, is notorious for doing that. They're well known in the industry. What RBC invented back in the 50s was we actually machine the two components separately. We machine, heat treat, grind them separately. We then put a stress riser in and we crack that bearing so that there's no material removal, right? If we were to cut it, it wouldn't be round anymore.
Right.
So we crack that bearing and then you can insert the inner ring into the outer ring. And once it gets installed in the machinery, it's supported and it doesn't even know it has a fracture in it anymore.
Oh, so it still has the fracture then?
So it still has that fracture in one plane. So either a single fracture or a double fracture, but it's in one plane that it's split. But of course, once it's in application, you don't want it to crack anymore.
Right.
You don't want it going into pieces. With one plane, it doesn't matter. The housing can support that. So that's where our Impact Tough comes in. We use a special heat treatment, case carburizing. It's not new to bearings. It's what's new is being able to case carburize a product and still crack it, because what that does is you use a low carbon steel, so it's soft. We impart carbon into it at the surface, so the surface get hard, gives you that wear resistance that you need, but keeps that soft ductile core. And so it's just our process to be able to then still fracture that and then put a bearing in operation that can handle those impact loads that you often see in the mining industry.
Wow. This is like a whole new world to me. I almost feel like I should know some of this stuff. And I have heard the term fracture bearing, but I just never, it was one of those things, you just kind of hear it. I never really actually got a chance to talk to someone about it. And just a quick question then. I kind of made the assumption when I said, the OEMs come to you and they know their pain point. Is that where a lot of the R&D stems from? Is they're coming to you and they're saying, on this, we've got them sitting here right here on the table, these dozers and, underground wheel loaders and stuff. Are they coming and saying these are the issues and then you are designing it? Or do they say, hey, we've redesigned this. What bearing is going to be able to handle this new design? Things like that.
A little bit of each, I suppose, right? They come to us with problems on existing machines. They also will come to us, and we'll figure out, I always kind of view all of our different technology as kind of tools in our toolkit, right? So they'll come to us with a problem. We got to understand what that problem is. and then we can apply the right tool to it.
Yeah.
But we also have the cases where maybe it's not a problem yet. They come to us and say, look, we've designed up this truck. This is how much real estate there is, or a dozer or whatever. What do you got? What do we need in here?
Right.
We do a fair amount of that as well.
I'm curious. And I'm not, of course, asking to call anybody out on or anything crazy like that. But do you ever, though, so someone come to you with a problem and they've already got the design all done, and you go, well, yeah, the fix to that is we need more space and we need to put this bearing in. Really? Oh, those must be fun conversations.
Well, truthfully, that's one of the things we kind of hinted at. Our maintenance-free liner systems are a great. We call it power density. We can fit a bearing in a smaller envelope to take more load. So it's another problem solver in there, right? Generally speaking, if you imagine in a bushing application, in a strut or something, when you overload that, when you design in too small of a bearing, what happens? All that grease just gets squirted out of there.
Right.
So you've got liner systems that, depending on our construction can handle a lot more. So for example, right, a greased bearing, a greased bushing will usually say the contact pressure in that's about 12,500 PSI is absolute max. Cut that in half if you want reasonable life. 6,000 PSI. Well, we have liner systems that can take up to 80,000 PSI.
Wow.
So whatever that is, 10, 12 times that, and you're not squeezing that lubricant out because we've bonded it, we've adhered it right to that raceway. So that's how we solve the very common occurrence of, oops, we didn't put a big enough bearing in here and we don't have room for you now.
Wow. I'd love to get an OEM on with you and have the discussion from their perspective of the conversation and yours. It'd be fascinating. And I'd love to see the look on the engineer's face when it comes out. Yeah, these 4 bearings need to all be adjusted. Marc, same thing to you. What does R&D look like? Is it how much of it? I know it's of course going to be mixed. How much of it is getting out ahead of the market and sort of going, we know these are issues that we can solve, or how much of it is getting that feedback? Because you're in a little bit of a different setup, right, for your go-to-market.
I mean, getting ahead of it is really part of our plan and has been for a while. And we do that at Dodge. We employ what we call voice of customer, right? Term a lot of people use, but we do, we've got our business development team across the country, right? But then beyond that, we've got over 70 field sales engineers that will actively call on these sites, either with distributors or on their own.
This is global?
Just in North America.
Just in North America. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So we really try to stay in touch directly with our customers just so we understand where those pain points are. And that feeds our knowledge as to where do we need to go? What do we need to do next? Where's the pain in that gear solution? Where's the pain in that bearing solution? And through those voice of customer activities, and sometimes the customer just tells us, just like you mentioned, I mean, they'll just come and say, when are you guys going to fix this? Or how can you fix this? And we listen, we take those notes and we bring it back. And, from start to finish, it might take several years to 10 years to develop a product for an industry. But when we do it, we generally do it. It's well thought out. We've engineered the heck out of it. We've tested the heck out of it, and it's ready for market. So, just some examples of that as time has gone on. We talked about the safety aspect, right? We've made gearing products. We've made bearing products for an awful long time. Mm-hmm. And just like everybody else, they form, fit, function, go in. They can take a certain load. They can produce a certain amount of torque. But what else can they do? Well, in today's world, as safety's gotten more important, say our gearing, I'll use that MTA that you brought up. With the new MTA product, we now have a whole safety. We're not selling safety as an accessory anymore. We're selling it as part of the product.
Right.
We're making it part of the product, right?
Yeah.
So now we have an inboard shaft cover that goes from the gearbox to the outboard side of the drive side bearing. That traditionally is an open area. That's a trouble spot. Mm-hmm. The user doesn't like it because of safety issues, right? They will usually have to hire a contractor to build some kind of special, unique, custom guarding system.
Right. Yeah.
Which is expensive and time. It takes time. Or they got to come up with something else, but they have to come up with something because, the governing bodies like MSHA, they don't want to see that. They don't want to see a rotating shaft where someone can get hurt.
Yeah.
So we've actually developed a standard guarding system for that product and our belted line, the TXT line, that can be cut and modified to fit the application specifically.
Yeah.
On site. So it's stuff like that we're doing in our R&D. We're, again, Brad brought it up, the power density. It applies in the gearing world too. Everything he said is exactly the same thing we say about gearing. Things have gotten more power dense. We've got to provide more torque in a smaller package to be competitive. And we've done that. And we will continue to enhance that. But at the same time, around the outside of that product, we're going to make it safer and easier to use for that user.
Yeah. What do just to wrap up? What sort of on display at we're doing MINExpo. Some people are actually going to be watching this during MINExpo with your booth number on the post. What sort of setup at the booth itself? Are you both going to be there?
I will be there.
Yeah. What do you have? Do you have like units on display? What's sort of what's included if people want to stop by and say hi?
Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah. So the three main things I think we're showcasing on the RBC side, we've got some large tapered roller, cylindrical roller wheel bearings that we bring a lot of enhancements, better bearing to market kind of thing than what typically comes with the truck. That impact tough we talked about, I've got an impact tester there. We'll be breaking bearings all day long.
Nice.
At least whenever it gets quiet to draw people in.
Yeah, nice.
Definitely stop by. It's pretty cool to see exactly what we're talking about. Bearings that won't fracture and bearings that will.
Right.
And then last, the other big product is maintenance-free product, right? It's that greaseless product that we talked about. It's something we feel is the future, exactly to what Marc was saying, voice of the customer. It's something that really saves the mine operators a lot of time. It lasts longer. They're the ones that have to deal with greasing and injectors breaking and all the heartaches of that. And it's something that the OEMs are investigating. It just, things take a while at that level, right? It's something they want to get right. Their name's on the line. So it's slowly making its way through the industry, and we just want to push as hard as we can because we really feel that is the future. I'd
like to dig in at some point into if we're getting you back on. I hope we will. We're doing one of three. No, we're doing more episodes with you. I can see it right in front of me. So yeah, it'd be great to dig into some of the specifics. I don't know if we can actually put out names of the machines, but it'd be quite interesting to actually get into some of that. Marc, on your side, what's on display?
Yeah, so at MINExpo 24, we will have also three showcase products. We're going to have that motorized torque arm that I've talked about. You'll see that one. I believe we have a size 10 in the booth for this show. That product, as I mentioned, goes up to 200 horse, which is actually our size 12. So they're actually two sizes larger than what you'll see. But you'll get that size 10 is pretty big. It's going to take up a nice corner of that booth anyway. Yeah. The other one's going to be that safety mount bearing we've been talking about.
Nice.
So you'll get to see how that works. There'll be plenty of experts there to do a show and tell if you'd like, or just answer some general questions. And then the third demonstrator will be our Optify system. So the futuristic stuff, right?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the e-tools and all that go with that, and how that works, and how it can simplify the miners' work.
Yeah. Okay. That'll be great. Yeah. We're going to be doing more episodes with you. This is a great, just sort of initial to kind of outline it. And hopefully the next episodes, we can kind of dig in a little deeper on a couple of these things. It'll be quite interesting. Gentlemen, thank you both. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Marc. And we'll be doing it again soon.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, and just to mention that people, it will be on the post, but the booth number is 6173. I believe that's right. If that is wrong on the screen, we'll put the right number, but I believe it's booth 6173 if people want to stop by. Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Of course, go check out their booth. If you're seeing this after MINExpo, there'll be lots of links to their website, different products, and things like that. So you can just click on it and get directly to them, or reach out to either one of our guests. We'll have their LinkedIn URL in the description. If you're seeing this on LinkedIn, they'll be tagged. You just click and go to them and reach out. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We will see you on the next episode of Mining Now.